Kira stood before 200 students in the Grand Academy's main hall. Her purple skin glowed softly under the lights as she spoke about the ancient ruins discovered on the fourth moon. She loved these moments, sharing knowledge with young minds eager to learn. The holographic display behind her showed images of carved stone and mysterious symbols that nobody could fully understand. These markings suggest a civilization that existed millions of years ago, she said, pointing to the symbols. We believe they were peaceful, much like us. They built great cities, and the alarm cut through her words like a knife. A deep, pulsing sound that Kira had only heard during drills. Every Varani in the hall looked up at the ceiling, their luminescent markings flickering with confusion. The students began whispering among themselves. Kira's communication device buzzed against her wrist. She looked down and saw Elder Thane's face on the small screen. His expression made her stomach drop. Kira, get to the Planetary Defense Council immediately, he said. His voice was tight with something she had never heard from him before. Fear. She dismissed the class and ran. Her feet carried her through the crystal corridors of the academy, past gardens filled with blue flowers, through archways that had stood for thousands of years. Other Varani were emerging from buildings, looking at the sky, talking in worried voices. Nobody knew what was happening, but everyone could feel that something was wrong. The Defense Council building stood at the center of the capital city. Kira had been there many times for diplomatic meetings, but never like this. Guards stood at every entrance, their ceremonial weapons now held ready. They let her pass without question. Inside, the main chamber was chaos. Dozens of officials crowded around holographic displays that showed their star system. Elder Thane stood at the center, his long silver robes moving as he gestured at the screens. When he saw Kira, he waved her over. What's happening? She asked. We detected something at the edge of our system 3 hours ago, Thane said. A vessel, unknown origin. Kira looked at the display. A small dot moved through the outer system, heading toward their world. Perhaps it's a merchant ship? Or explorers from the Talvan Republic? That's what we thought at first, another official said. His name was Vorn, and he was the head of system security. But look at this. He changed the display. Numbers appeared beside the moving dot. Speed calculations. Distance covered. Time elapsed. Kira's eyes widened. That's impossible. No ship can move that fast. Exactly, Vorn said. This vessel crossed from the edge of our system to the orbit of our 6th planet in 4 hours. Our fastest ships would need 2 days to make that journey. Could it be a probe? Kira asked. An automated vessel? Thane shook his head. The energy signature is too large. This is a full-sized ship, possibly larger than our biggest carrier. The room fell silent. Every Varani knew what this meant. Their people had been exploring space for 3,000 years. They had mapped every civilization within 50 light years. They knew every species, every government, every type of ship. This vessel matched nothing in their records. Have they communicated? Kira asked. Nothing, Vorn said. They're maintaining a steady course toward our world. They'll be in orbit within 6 hours. Elder Thane placed a hand on Kira's shoulder. I need you to prepare a first contact protocol. If they want to talk, you'll lead the communication team. Me? Kira felt her markings flare with surprise. Surely, there are others more qualified. You're the best linguistic scholar we have, Thane interrupted. And you're calm under pressure. We need that right now. Kira nodded and moved to a smaller terminal. Her fingers worked quickly, pulling up every first contact procedure the Varani had ever developed. But those procedures assumed months of preparation, long-range communication, gradual approach. This ship had appeared suddenly and was moving with purpose. She worked for hours, building a framework for communication. Mathematical sequences, physical constants, universal symbols. If this species was advanced enough to build a ship that fast, they would understand these basics. Around her, the Defense Council grew more tense. Military commanders arrived, discussing defensive positions. Some argued for activating the planetary shields. Others wanted to move the fleet between the unknown ship and their world. Kira tried to block out their voices and focus on her work. "It's slowing down," someone announced. Everyone rushed to the main display. The unknown vessel had reduced its speed dramatically. It was now moving at a crawl. Relatively speaking, it adjusted its trajectory slightly, entering a standard orbital approach. "They know what they're doing," Vorn observed. "That's a textbook non-threatening approach pattern. Or they're getting into position," a military commander countered. Elder Thane raised his hand for silence. "We wait. We watch. We prepare to communicate." The next 2 hours were agony. Kira kept refining her contact protocols while watching the display. The unknown ship grew closer. Long-range sensors began picking up more details. The vessel was massive, nearly twice the size of the largest Varani ship. Its design was strange, angular, and aggressive-looking, with none of the flowing curves that Varani ships featured. "It's entering high orbit," Vorn announced. Every screen in the room switched to show the unknown ship. It hung in space above their world, dark, against the stars. The design was clearly meant for functionality rather than beauty. Weapons could be seen along its hull, though they appeared inactive. The ship made no aggressive moves. It simply held position. Kira was scheduled to give a planetary broadcast. The people needed information, needed to know their government was handling the situation. She walked to the broadcast chamber with Elder Thane beside her. "What do I tell them?" she asked. "The truth," Thane said. "We don't know who this is, but we're prepared to communicate peacefully." The lights came on. Cameras focused on Kira's face. She knew that every Varani on the planet was watching, waiting for her words. She took a breath and began speaking. "People of Verath, I am Kira Zenthal of the Grand Academy. Today, an unknown vessel has arrived in orbit above our world. We do not know who they are or where they come from, but I want you to know that your government is taking every precaution to ensure." The words died in her throat. On the screen behind her, visible to every Varani watching, the unknown ship had activated lights along its hull. Symbols appeared on its side, glowing in the darkness of space. But more importantly, something was happening on every communication device across the planet. A message was being broadcast. Not in Varani language, but in pure mathematics. Numbers and equations that any advanced civilization would recognize. Physical constants, atomic weights, the speed of light. And then, words began to form. The ship's computer was using the mathematical foundation to build a basic vocabulary. Kira turned away from the camera, forgetting the broadcast entirely. She rushed back to the Defense Council chamber, where linguists were already working on the translation. "What does it say?" she demanded. One of the linguists looked up, her face showing wonder and fear in equal measure. "It says, 'We come in peace. We are human. We are from Earth.'" The word meant nothing to any Varani. Earth. They had no record of any planet by that name. No record of any species calling themselves human. "Where is Earth?" Elder Thane asked. Astronomers scrambled to check their databases. Minutes passed in tense silence. Finally, one of them spoke up. "There's a yellow star approximately 37 light-years from here. Third planet from that star. Our probes passed through that system 80 years ago. The planet had primitive life. Single-celled organisms. Nothing advanced. 80 years ago." Vorn repeated. "And now, they're here, with a faster-than-light ship." The implications settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Somewhere in the galaxy, a species had gone from primitive life to interstellar travel in less than a century. Or the probes had been wrong, or something else was happening that nobody understood. "Send a response," Elder Thane ordered. "Tell them we receive their message. Ask them to send a small delegation to the surface. Kira will lead our contact team." Kira. Kira felt her heart's beating rapidly. This was really happening. First contact with a completely unknown species. She gathered her team quickly. Linguists, biologists, cultural experts. They loaded into a transport and flew to the designated landing site outside the capital. The spot was a wide plain surrounded by hills. Easy to monitor, easy to defend if necessary. Kira and her team waited, watching the sky. Above them, a small craft, detached from the human ship. It descended slowly, carefully, using what appeared to be chemical rockets rather than the gravity drives that Varani ships used. The craft was rough and functional. It landed with a heavy thud that kicked up dust. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a ramp lowered from its side. 3 figures emerged. Kira had seen many different species in her life. The Varani had contact with 17 different civilizations. But these humans were unlike anything she had expected. They walked on 2 legs like Varani, but their bodies were different. No luminescent markings. Skin in a pale tan color. Hair growing from their heads. They wore suits that covered most of their bodies. Probably protective gear for an unknown environment. The lead human removed their helmet. It was a male. Kira guessed from the body structure. His face was symmetrical, with 2 eyes that locked onto hers with an intensity that made her take a step back. Those eyes held something she couldn't quite name. Determination. Maybe. Or hunger. Not for food, but for something else. "I am Captain Jake Morrison," the human said. His mouth moved, making sounds. But Kira's translator device picked up the meaning. "From the vessel Wanderer. From the planet Earth. We come. In peace." Kira found her voice. "I am Kira Zenthal. Welcome to Vareth." The human smiled, showing white teeth. "You have no idea how long we've been looking for you." The meeting room was designed to put guests at ease. Soft lights, comfortable seating, walls decorated with Varani art, showing peaceful landscapes. Kira sat across from Captain Jake Morrison and his 2 companions. The woman had introduced herself as Dr. Lisa Grant, a scientist who studied alien life. The other man was Commander Ryan Blake, who said very little but watched everything with sharp eyes. Kira's team had set up translation devices that worked better than the initial ones. Now, they could have real conversations, instead of broken sentences. But even with perfect translation, understanding these humans was difficult. "Let me make sure I understand," Kira said, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. "Your species achieved faster than light, travel only 200 years after discovering how to fly." Jake nodded. "Give or take a few decades. We're not great with patience." "That's incredibly fast," Kira said. "The Varani needed 2,000 years between our first aircraft and our first FTL drive." Lisa leaned forward, her eyes bright with curiosity. "How long have the Varani been spacefaring?" 3,000 years, Kira answered. "We have contact with 17 different species. We've mapped this entire region of the galaxy, but we never detected your people. Not until today. We're good at staying quiet when we want to," Ryan said. His voice was calm, but there was something military in his bearing. "Earth is far enough away that we could develop without being noticed. But why come here?" Kira asked. "Our probes detected nothing advanced on your world 80 years ago." Jake's expression changed. Something sad crossed his face. 80 years ago, we were recovering from a global war. Our population had been cut in half. Our cities were in ruins. We almost destroyed ourselves." The Varani in the room went silent. The concept was difficult to grasp. The Varani had been peaceful for over 10,000 years. War was something they studied in ancient history, not something that happened in modern times. "But you survived," Kira said softly. "We did more than survive," Jake said. "We learned. We rebuilt. We looked up at the stars and decided that we were done fighting each other. We needed to know if we were alone in the universe." Lisa pulled out a small device and projected images into the air. Kira saw a blue and green planet, beautiful against the darkness of space. "This is Earth," Lisa said. "400 years ago, we thought we were the only intelligent life in existence. We built telescopes, sent probes, listened for signals. Nothing. Just silence. That must have been lonely," one of Kira's team members said. "It was," Lisa agreed. "Every generation hoped they would be the ones to find someone. Anyone. We launched ships to nearby stars, found planets, but no people, no cities, no signals, just empty worlds." Jake stood and walked to the window. Outside, the Varani capital stretched to the horizon. Elegant towers, hanging gardens, thousands of buildings that had stood for centuries. "Then we found you," he said. "The Wanderer was on a survey mission. We detected your radio signals 3 months ago. We've been traveling here ever since." 3 months? Kira's eyes widened. "The distance between our worlds should take years to cross, even with FTL. Human FTL drives are different from yours," Ryan said. "Faster, but harder to control. More dangerous. We lost ships in the early days of testing. But you kept trying," Kira said. "Always." Jake turned back to face her. "That's what humans do. We fail, we learn, we try again." Elder Thane had been sitting quietly, listening. Now he spoke up. "Captain Morrison, your arrival has caused quite a stir among our people. A ship appearing without warning, from a species we never knew existed. Some are afraid." "I understand," Jake said. "We should have announced ourselves from further out. But we were excited. We saw your cities from orbit, and we needed to know you were real." "We are very real," Thane said with a slight smile. "And now that you're here, what do you want?" The question hung in the air. Kira watched Jake carefully. This was the moment that would define everything. What did humanity want from the Varani? "To talk," Jake said simply. "To learn. To share. We've been alone for so long. We have so many questions. What's it like having 17 species to talk to? How do you maintain peace? What have you learned about the galaxy?" Lisa added. "And we want to share what we know. Human science, human culture, human history. Maybe we can help each other." Over the next several days, Kira barely slept. She coordinated meetings between human and Varani scientists. She watched as Lisa examined Varani biology with gentle fascination. She listened as Jake explained human history to groups of scholars who couldn't believe what they were hearing. The humans were contradictions. They were violent but kind. They were impatient but thorough. They had nearly destroyed themselves, but had also created beautiful art and music. They fought wars but also strived for peace. One evening, Kira found Jake standing on a balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. "Your world is beautiful," Jake said as she approached. "Thank you," Kira said. She stood beside him, looking out at her home. "Jake, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Why did you risk everything to come here?" "You said human FTL is dangerous. You traveled for 3 months through unknown space. What if we had been hostile?" One. Jake was quiet for a moment. "There's a human saying, 'Fortune favors the bold.' We could have sent drones. We could have observed from a distance. But that's not who we are. We wanted to meet you face to face. To shake hands. To look into your eyes and know that we're not alone anymore. No quat. You're very different from us," Kira said. "I know." Jake smiled. "Your people are peaceful. You've built a civilization based on knowledge and art. You take centuries to make decisions. You're careful, and thoughtful. And humans? We're messy. We're impulsive. We make mistakes and fix them as we go. But we're also loyal. When we make friends, we stand by them. When we make promises, we keep them. Kira found herself liking this strange human captain. There was something honest about him. Something genuine. The cultural exchange continued. Varani artists were amazed by human music, which used different scales and rhythms than Varani compositions. Human engineers were fascinated by Varani energy shields, which were far more advanced than anything Earth had developed. Varani philosophers debated human ethical frameworks that seemed to accept conflict as natural rather than aberrant. Ryan Blake spent most of his time with Varani security forces. Kira watched him teaching defensive tactics to soldiers who had never fought a real battle. The Varani military was largely ceremonial, designed for parades and tradition rather than actual combat. "Your people aren't prepared for war," Ryan told Kira one afternoon. "We haven't had a war in 10,000 years, Kira said. "Why would we prepare for one?" "Because the galaxy might not be as peaceful as you think," Ryan said. "You've been lucky. The 17 species you know are all peaceful. But what about the species you don't know? What about the ones that don't want to talk?" Kira didn't like thinking about this. The Varani worldview was based on cooperation and understanding. The idea that some species might be fundamentally hostile was disturbing, but Ryan's words stayed with her. Lisa gave a presentation at the Grand Academy about human evolution. She explained how humans had developed on a world full of predators, where only the strongest and smartest survived. She talked about how human brains were wired for pattern recognition and problem-solving under pressure. "We're not the fastest species," Lisa said. "We're not the strongest. But we're adaptable. We can survive in almost any environment. We can eat almost anything. We can learn almost any skill. That's our advantage." A Varani student asked, "Is it true that humans still have conflicts on Earth? That you still fight each other?" Rhyme. Lisa hesitated. "Yes. We've come a long way. But we're not perfect. We still have disagreements. Sometimes those disagreements turn violent. But we're working on it. Every generation gets a little better." After 2 weeks, Elder Thane called Kira to his office. Jake was already there, along with several high-ranking Varani officials. "We've been discussing the next steps," Thane said. "Captain Morrison has proposed a formal alliance between Earth and Varath." Kira looked at Jake in surprise. "An alliance?" "A friendship," Jake corrected. "Cultural exchange. Scientific cooperation. Open communication. We're neighbors in the galaxy. It makes sense to help each other." "What would this involve?" one official asked. "Human ships could visit Varath regularly," Jake explained. "We'd share our FTL technology, our weapons technology. In exchange, we'd learn from your shield systems, your medical advances, your social structures." "Weapons technology?" another official said nervously. "Why would we need that?" Ryan spoke up. "Because you should be able to defend yourselves. Your military is impressive in size, but outdated in tactics. We could help modernize your defenses." "But we have no enemies," the official protested. "That you know of," Ryan said quietly. Elder Thane raised his hand. "Let us not rush into decisions. Captain Morrison, your proposal is generous. But the Varani Council needs time to discuss this. We've only known humans for 2 weeks." "I understand," Jake said. "Take all the time you need. The Wanderer isn't going anywhere." That night, Kira couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Ryan's warning, about species they didn't know, about threats they hadn't prepared for. The Varani had been safe for so long that they had forgotten what danger felt like. She accessed the historical database and read about the last Varani War, 10,000 years ago. It had been brief and brutal. Millions had died before peace was established. The Varani had sworn never to let it happen again. They had built their civilization on that promise. But what if the galaxy didn't care about Varani promises? Kira went to the observation deck where Jake often stood. She found him there, looking up at the stars. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Too many thoughts," Kira admitted. She stood beside him. "Jake, tell me honestly. Do you think we're in danger?" Jake was quiet for a long time. "I don't know," he finally said. "Your corner of the galaxy seems peaceful. But space is big, really big, and humans learned the hard way that peace requires strength. We'd rather have weapons and never use them than need them and not have them. That's a sad way to live." "Maybe," Jake agreed. "But it's kept us alive." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere up there was Earth, alone until now. And somewhere out there were other species, unknown and unmapped. The galaxy suddenly seemed much larger and more dangerous than Kira had ever imagined. She didn't know it yet, but her peaceful world was about to change forever. The alarm came at dawn. Kira was in her quarters, preparing for another day of meetings with the human delegation. The sound was different from the one that had announced the Wanderer's arrival. This was sharper, more urgent. A military alert. She ran to the Defense Council building, her heart racing. The streets were empty this early, but she could see lights turning on in buildings across the city. Other people were waking up to the alarm, wondering what was happening. The council chamber was already full when she arrived. Elder Thane stood at the center, his face grave. Jake Morrison was there too, along with Ryan Blake. They must have been contacted the moment the alert went out. "What's happening?" Kira demanded. Vorn turned from his display. "We detected energy signatures at the edge of our system. Massive ones. 3 ships just emerged from FTL. More humans?" Kira asked, looking at Jake. Jake shook his head. "Not ours. The Wanderer is the only human ship in this sector." The main display showed the outer system. 3 large dots moved in formation, heading toward Verath. The computer was analyzing their signatures, comparing them to the database of known species. "No matches," Vorn announced. "These ships aren't from any species we've encountered." Ryan moved closer to the display, his expression intense. "Can you get better resolution? I need to see their hull configuration." A Varani technician worked quickly, enhancing the image. The 3 ships came into focus. They were angular and dark, covered in what looked like armor plating. Weapons bristled along their hulls. These were not exploration vessels. These were warships. "How long until they reach us?" Elder Thane asked. "At their current speed, approximately 18 hours, Vorn said. "Have they communicated?" Kira asked. "Nothing," Vorn said. "They're just heading straight for us." Jake turned to Elder Thane. "I need to get back to the Wanderer. Now." "Of course," Thane said. "Take one of our shuttles." "I'm coming with you," Kira said quickly. Jake started to protest, but Kira cut him off. "I'm the liaison between our people. If something is about to happen, I need to understand what you're seeing." Jake nodded. "Let's go." The shuttle flight to the Wanderer took 20 minutes. Kira sat beside Jake, watching him work on a portable device. His fingers moved quickly, accessing data and running calculations. "Do you know who they are?" Kira asked. "Maybe," Jake said. Ryan spotted something in the hull design. It matches patterns from a species we've heard rumors about. The Kreth Dominion. "Ryan, I've never heard of them," Kira said. "Neither had we until recently," Jake said. "We picked up fragments of old transmissions near our territory. Stories about a hostile empire that conquers other species. We thought they were just legends. Old ghost stories. But now? Now I'm not sure," Jake said grimly. The Wanderer's interior was different from Varani ships. Everything was functional and efficient. No art on the walls, no decorative elements. Just clean corridors and crew members moving with purpose. Jake led Kira to the bridge, a large room filled with displays and control stations. Human crew members worked at their posts, their faces focused. Lisa was already there. studying biological data. Ryan stood at a tactical station, analyzing the unknown ships. "Captain on the bridge," someone announced. Jake moved to the command chair. "Report." Ryan pulled up the tactical display. "I've been going through our database. These ships match the descriptions from those old transmissions. Heavy armor, plasma weapons, aggressive configuration. If these are Kreeth ships, we're looking at a species that specializes in conquest." "Why would they come here?" Kira asked. "The Varani have never encountered them." "That you know of," Lisa said, looking up from her station. "But I've been thinking, your people have been spacefaring for 3,000 years. You've built a rich, peaceful civilization. You have resources, technology, culture. To a hostile species, you'd be a valuable target." Kira felt cold. "You think they've been watching us?" "It's what I'd do," Ryan said bluntly. "Find a peaceful species. Study them from a distance. Wait for the right moment to strike." "But we have defenses," Kira protested. "Our fleet is one of the largest in this region." "Your fleet is ceremonial," Ryan said, not unkindly. "I've seen your ships. Beautiful designs, impressive shields, but your weapons are outdated and your tactics are thousands of years old. Against a species that specializes in warfare, you wouldn't last long." The words hit Kira like a physical blow. She wanted to argue, but deep down she knew Ryan was right. The Varani military existed to show strength and tradition. They trained for parades and ceremonies. They had forgotten how to actually fight. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "The Kreeth ships are slowing down," a crew member reported. "They're taking up position at the edge of your system. Just sitting there." "They're studying us," Ryan said. "Counting our ships, analyzing our defenses." "We should contact them," Kira said. "Try to communicate. Maybe this is all a misunderstanding." Jake looked at her with sympathy. "Kira, I hope you're right. But we need to prepare for the worst." The Varani Council sent out a communication on all frequencies. Kira helped compose the message, making it as welcoming and peaceful as possible. They explained that Varath was a peaceful world, open to diplomatic contact, eager to establish friendly relations. Hours passed. No response came from the Kreeth ships. Elder Thane convened an emergency meeting. The entire Varani government was there, along with military commanders and civilian leaders. Jake and his senior officers attended as observers. "We must assume they are hostile," one military commander said. "We should activate all planetary shields and mobilize the fleet. We should try again to communicate," another official argued. "Perhaps they don't understand our language. We've sent messages in 17 different languages, plus mathematical sequences," Vorn said. "If they wanted to talk, they would have responded by now." Elder Thane looked tired. "Captain Morrison, what would humans do in this situation?" Jake stood. "Sir, humans would prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. We'd get our civilians to safety, position our military assets defensively, and make it clear that while we want peace, we're ready to defend ourselves." "The Varani do not make threats," an official said stiffly. "It's not a threat," Jake said. "It's a deterrent. Sometimes, the best way to avoid a fight is to show you're ready for one." The debate went on for hours. Kira watched the Varani officials argue about philosophy and proper procedure, while the Kreeth ships waited at the edge of their system. She realized with growing frustration that her people weren't equipped for this. They could debate and discuss, but they couldn't make the hard decisions that war required. Finally, a message came through. Not from the Kreeth ships, but from an automated signal. It was brief and in simple language that the Varani computers could translate easily. "Attention Varath. The Kreeth Dominion claims this system. You have 12 hours to surrender your government and prepare for occupation. Resistance will be met with destruction. Comply, or be destroyed." The council chamber fell silent. Every Varani in the room stared at the message in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. This was something from ancient history, from the dark times before civilization. Elder Thane's voice was shaky. They want to conquer us. Yes, Ryan said simply. We must surrender. One official said immediately. We can't risk our people. If we surrender, perhaps they'll be merciful. They won't, Ryan said flatly. Species like the Kreth don't conquer worlds to be merciful. They want your resources, your labor, your technology. Surrender means slavery at best. We have to fight then, a military commander said, though he sounded uncertain. Can we win? Elder Thane asked Jake directly. Jake looked at Ryan. Some silent communication passed between them. Finally, Jake spoke. Alone? No. The Kreth have 3 warships designed for combat. Your fleet is larger, but not built for serious warfare. They'd tear through your defenses. Then what do we do? Thane asked, his voice breaking. You let us help, Jake said. The room erupted. Several officials shouted at once. Some argued that dragging humanity into a Varani problem was wrong. Others said that accepting help would make them look weak. A few questioned whether the humans could even make a difference. Elder Thane raised his hands for silence. Captain Morrison, why would you help us? You owe us nothing. You could leave right now and be safe. Jake stepped forward. Sir, humanity spent thousands of years alone in the galaxy. We looked at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there. When we found you, when we met Kira and your people, it changed everything for us. You're the first friends we've ever made out here, and humans don't abandon their friends. But you could die, another official said. All of you. The Wanderer is 1 ship against 3. Yes, Jake agreed. We could die. But we'd rather die fighting beside friends than live knowing we ran away when you needed us. Kira felt tears forming in her eyes. These humans, these violent, impulsive, messy humans, were willing to sacrifice themselves for a species they'd known for only a few weeks. Ryan pulled up tactical displays. We don't have much time. We need to combine our forces. Varani, shields with human weapons. Your numbers with our tactics. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. This is insane, an official muttered. This is war, Ryan corrected. And in war, you use what you have. Elder Thane looked around the room, seeing the fear and confusion on every face. Very well, Thane said. Captain Morrison, the Varani accept your help. Commander Blake, you have operational command of our combined forces. The next hours were chaos. Ryan worked with Varani military commanders, teaching them basic combat formations and tactics. Human engineers showed Varani technicians how to retrofit their weapons for better effectiveness. Lisa coordinated the evacuation of civilians from the capital to underground shelters. Kira stayed on the Wanderer's bridge, coordinating communication between human and Varani forces. She watched the displays as the Varani fleet moved into defensive positions. 80 ships in total, ranging from small frigates to massive carriers. Against the Kreth's 3 warships, it should have been overwhelming numbers, but Ryan kept shaking his head. Numbers don't matter if they can't fight effectively. We'll lose half the fleet in the first engagement. Numbers. I can't hard. When used with every 3. Then what do we do? Kira asked. We buy time, Ryan said. The Wanderer will engage the Kreth directly, draw their fire. While they're focused on us, the Varani fleet can attack from multiple angles. It's not pretty, but it might work. You're using yourselves as bait, Kira said, horrified. We're using ourselves as a weapon, Jake corrected. The Wanderer is built for this. Your ships aren't. The 12 hours were almost up. On the displays, the 3 Kreth warships began moving. They accelerated toward Varath, their weapons charging. No more negotiations. No more waiting. All ships to battle stations, Jake ordered. His voice was calm, like he'd done this 1,000 times before. Kira, you should go to the shelter. No, Kira said firmly. I'm staying here. If you're fighting for my world, I'm not hiding. Jake smiled. Fair enough. Strap in. This is going to get rough. The Wanderer moved forward, positioning itself between the Kreth fleet and Verath. One human ship against 3 alien warships, each 10 times its size. It was suicide. But Jake Morrison wasn't running. And neither were his crew. The battle for Verath was about to begin. The first shot came from the lead Kreth warship. A beam of concentrated plasma that turned space white for an instant. The Wanderer rolled hard to the left, and the beam missed by less than 100 meters. Kira gripped her seat as the ship shook. She had never experienced combat before. The displays showed the 3 Kreth ships spreading out in a triangle formation, trying to surround the Wanderer. Behind them, the Varani fleet was moving into position, but they seemed slow and uncertain compared to the aggressive movements of the Kreth. Return fire, forward batteries, Jake ordered. His voice was steady, like he was discussing the weather rather than fighting for his life. The Wanderer's weapons opened up. Missiles streaked toward the lead Kreth ship, followed by energy weapons that lit up the darkness. The Kreth shields flared as they absorbed the impact. The warship barely slowed down. Their shields are strong, Ryan reported from the tactical station. Stronger than our initial estimates. Then we hit them harder, Jake said. Divert power from rear shields to weapons. All available power to forward batteries. Captain, that leaves our back exposed, a crew member warned. I know, Jake said. But we're not running. We're only going forward. The Wanderer accelerated directly toward the lead Kreth ship. Kira watched in horror as the distance closed. The Kreth vessel was enormous, its hull covered in weapons and armor. The Wanderer looked tiny in comparison. What are you doing? Kira asked. Something they won't expect, Jake said. Ryan. Prepare torpedo spread. Full salvo on my mark. Full salvo. The Kreth ship fired again. Multiple plasma beams this time, creating a web of deadly energy. The Wanderer twisted and rolled, dodging between the beams with maneuvers that seemed impossible for a ship that size. Kira felt her stomach lurch as gravity fluctuated. Now, Jake shouted. 20 torpedoes launched at once, all aimed at a single point on the Kreth ship's forward shield. They hit in rapid sequence, each explosion weakening the shield a bit more. The final torpedo punched through and slammed into the hull, tearing a gash in the armor. The Kreth ship shuddered. It wasn't disabled, but it was hurt. Varani Fleet, this is Commander Blake. Ryan's voice went out on all frequencies. Target the damaged ship. All vessels concentrate fire on my coordinates. The Varani ships opened fire. Energy beams and missiles converged on the wounded Kreth warship. Their weapons were less powerful than the Wanderers, but there were so many of them. The combined barrage overwhelmed the Kreth shields and hammered the damaged section of hull. But the other 2 Kreth ships weren't idle. They moved to protect their damaged companion, spreading out to create a defensive formation. One of them targeted a group of Varani frigates that had moved too close. The plasma beam sliced through the first frigate like it was made of paper. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. The beam continued through and caught a second frigate, cutting it in half. Both ships and their crews were gone in seconds. Kira cried out. She knew people on those ships. Fellow Varani, who had families and dreams and lives. Focus, Jake said, not unkindly. We can mourn later. Right now, we fight. The battle became chaos. The Wanderer darted between the Kreth ships, firing at any weak point Ryan could identify. The Varani fleet attacked in waves, losing ships but forcing the Kreth to split their attention. Space was filled with debris and explosions. The damaged ship is retreating, Ryan reported. It's falling back behind the other 2. Don't let it escape, Jake said. If we let it repair and rejoin the fight, we're done. Round The Wanderer pushed forward, chasing the wounded Kreth ship. But the other two warships moved to block the path. They knew what the humans were trying to do. "We're taking fire from both sides," a crew member called out. "Keep going," Jake ordered. An explosion rocked the ship. Kira was thrown against her restraints. The lights flickered and alarms began blaring. "Hit on deck 3, someone reported. "Hull breach. Ceiling affected sections. Shields at 20%, another voice called. Lisa looked up from her station, her face pale. "Jake, we can't take much more of this." "I know," Jake said. He was staring at the tactical display, calculating angles and trajectories. "Ryan, do we have enough power for the main gun?" Ryan checked his console. "Barely. 1 shot. Maybe 2. But charging it will drain everything else. We'll be defenseless." "Do it," Jake said. "Jake," Lisa started. "Do it," Jake repeated firmly. The Wanderer's main weapon was something the Varani didn't have. A mass driver that used magnetic fields to accelerate projectiles to a fraction of light speed. It took enormous power and could only fire a few times before overheating. But when it hit, nothing could stop it. The ship's lights dimmed as power was diverted to the weapon. On the displays, Kira could see the 2 Kreth ships moving closer. Sensing weakness, their weapons charged, ready to deliver the killing blow. "Weapon charged," Ryan announced. "Fire," Jake said quietly. The recoil pushed the Wanderer backward. A tungsten rod, accelerated to incredible speed, shot toward the nearest Kreth ship. At that velocity, shields were useless. The projectile punched through the warship's hull, through its interior, and out the other side. The damage was catastrophic. The Kreth ship tried to maneuver, but its engines were failing. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull. Within seconds, the mighty warship was drifting, powerless and broken. The Varani fleet erupted in cheers. Kira could hear them over the communication channels, celebrating the impossible. They had destroyed a Kreth warship, but there were still 2 more. "Shields offline," Ryan reported. "We have no defenses." The remaining operational Kreth ship turned its full attention to the Wanderer. It fired everything it had. The human ship tried to dodge, but without shields, even a glancing hit was deadly. An explosion tore through the Wanderer's port side. Kira screamed as her station sparked and died. Half the bridge went dark. She could hear people crying out, could smell burning electronics, and something worse. "Multiple hull breaches," Ryan said, his voice strained. "Engineering is gone. Life support failing." Jake pulled himself up from where the explosion had thrown him. Blood ran down his face from a cut above his eye. "Evacuate non-essential personnel. Get them to the escape pods." "Jake, we all need to evacuate," Lisa said. "Not yet," Jake said. "We've still got 1 shot left in the main gun. We don't have the power." Ryan protested. "Then find it," Jake ordered. "Strip power from everything. Life support. Artificial gravity. Everything. Give me 1 more shot." Kira watched the human crew work. They were wounded and afraid, but they didn't hesitate. They followed their captain's orders without question. This was what humans were, she realized. They fought even when the fight seemed hopeless. They kept going when any reasonable species would have surrendered. "We've got power," Ryan said. "But Jake, without life support, we've only got minutes." "That's all we need," Jake said. "Get me a firing solution on that ship." The Wanderer limped forward. It was barely functioning, trailing atmosphere and debris. The Kreth ship moved in for the kill, confident in its victory. "Ready," Ryan said. "C. Ready." Jake didn't hesitate. Fire. The second tungsten rod launched. This time, Jake had aimed for the Kreth ship's engines. The projectile hit perfectly, tearing through the engine core. The explosion was spectacular. The entire rear section of the warship disintegrated. The Kreeth ship began tumbling, its reactor going critical. The crew tried to evacuate, but it was too late. The reactor breached, and the warship exploded in a flash of light that temporarily blinded the sensors. 2 down, 1 to go. But the Wanderer had nothing left. The ship was dead in space, its systems failing one by one. "Abandon ship," Jake ordered. "Everyone to the escape pods. Now." The crew moved quickly, grabbing emergency supplies and helping wounded comrades. Kira stayed with Jake and Ryan on the bridge, watching the displays as the remaining Kreeth ship moved toward them. "Kira, you need to go," Jake said. "Not without you," she said stubbornly. The third Kreeth ship had been hanging back, damaged from the initial engagement with the Varani fleet. But now it moved forward, seeing an opportunity to finish off the Wanderer and then destroy the Varani fleet at its leisure. "Varani fleet, this is Commander Blake," Ryan transmitted. "The Wanderer is out of action. You're on your own. I'm uploading our tactical data now. Use it." On the displays, Kira could see the Varani ships regrouping. They had lost nearly 30 vessels, but 50 remained. And they had learned from watching the humans fight. They weren't moving in ceremonial formations anymore. They were spreading out, attacking from multiple angles, focusing fire on weak points. The Kreeth ship tried to engage them, but it was already damaged and now it was outnumbered. The Varani pressed their advantage. Energy beams and missiles hammered the warship from all sides. "They're doing it," Lisa whispered. "They're winning." The Kreeth ship's shields failed. Its hull began breaking apart under the sustained barrage. Explosions rippled along its length. Finally, its reactor went critical, and it exploded, just like the other two. Silence fell over the battlefield. The Kreeth were gone. Against all odds, the Varani and humans had won. "We did it," Kira said, tears streaming down her face. Jake slumped in his chair, exhausted. "Yeah, we did." Alarms began blaring. The Wanderer's reactor was destabilizing. They had minutes before it breached. "Time to go," Ryan said, pulling Jake to his feet. They ran through the damaged corridors. Bodies of crew members lay where they had fallen. Kira tried not to look, tried not to think about how much the humans had sacrificed. They reached the last escape pod. Lisa was already inside, along with a dozen crew members. Jake pushed Kira in and climbed in after her. Ryan sealed the hatch and activated the launch sequence. The pod shot away from the Wanderer just as the reactor breached. The explosion lit up space like a new sun. The ship that had crossed the galaxy to find friendship, that had fought impossible odds to protect a world it barely knew, was gone. Kira watched through the pod's window as debris spread across space. The humans sat in silence, mourning their ship and their fallen crewmates. A Varani rescue ship picked them up within an hour. They were brought to the surface where crowds had gathered. Varani, who had watched the battle from the ground, who had seen the humans sacrifice everything. As Jake stepped off the transport, Elder Thane was there to meet him. The old Varani leader embraced the human captain, tears running down his face. "You saved us," Thane said. "You and your crew. You saved us all." Jake looked tired beyond words. "We lost good people." "I know," Thane said. "We'll honor them. Every Varani child will learn their names. What humans did for us today will never be forgotten." Kira stood beside Jake, looking up at the sky where the battle had raged. The Wanderer was gone, but what it represented remained. Humans had proven that friendship meant something. That loyalty wasn't just a word, that when the moment came, they would stand and fight for those they cared about. The galaxy would never be the same. The medical center was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors. Kira sat beside Jake's bed, watching him sleep. He had been unconscious for 2 days, his body recovering from injuries sustained during the battle. Around them, other beds held wounded humans and Varani. The medical staff moved between them, treating everyone equally regardless of species. Lisa sat nearby, her arm in a sling. She had refused to rest until all the injured crew members were stable. Now she looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. "He'll be okay," Lisa said softly. "Jake's tough. He's survived worse." "Has he?" Kira asked. "Been in many space battles before?" Lisa shook her head. "No. That was his first real combat. Ours, too. Humanity has been peaceful for the last century. We train for war, but we haven't actually fought one in a long time." "You could have fooled me," Kira said. "You all acted like veterans." "That's just how humans are," Lisa said. "When things get bad, we focus. We do what needs to be done." Jake was terrified the whole time. I guarantee it. But he didn't let that stop him. Jake's eyes opened. He blinked a few times, focusing on Kira's face. "Hey," he said, his voice rough. "Hey, yourself," Kira said, relief flooding through her. "You scared us." "Sorry," Jake said. He tried to sit up, winced, and lay back down. "How long was I out?" 2 days, Lisa said. "The Varani doctors say you'll make a full recovery. Nothing that won't heal." "The crew?" Jake asked. Lisa's expression grew sad. "We lost 47. Another 30 wounded. Out of 150 crew members." Jake closed his eyes. Kira saw pain cross his face that had nothing to do with his injuries. "I need their names. I need to write to their families." "I've already started," Lisa said gently. "But yes, we'll finish it together." "The Varani?" Jake asked. "Recovering," Kira said. "We lost over 2,000 crew members across the fleet. But we're alive. Our world is safe. Because of you." Jake shook his head. "We just gave you time. Your people won that battle. You fought well." "We fought like you taught us," Kira corrected. "We would have lost without your help." Over the next week, Jake recovered enough to walk. Kira took him on a tour of the capital, showing him the memorials that had already been erected. Varani artists had created statues honoring the fallen humans. Their names were carved in stone, written in both English and Varani script. "Captain Jake Morrison of Earth," one memorial read, "and the crew of the Wanderer. They came from the stars as friends. They stayed as heroes. They fought as family." Jake stood before the memorial for a long time, not speaking. Kira gave him space, understanding that he needed this moment. "They deserved better than to die in someone else's war," Jake finally said. "They died protecting friends," Kira said. "That's not someone else's war. That's the best reason there is." Elder Thane had called an emergency session of the Varani Council. Jake and his surviving crew were invited to attend. When they entered the Great Hall, every Varani stood and began applauding. The sound echoed off the crystal walls, a thunderous tribute to the humans who had saved their world. Jake looked uncomfortable with the attention, but he stood straight and acknowledged the gesture with a nod. "Captain Morrison," Elder Thane began once the room had quieted, "the Varani owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You came to our world seeking friendship, and when we faced our darkest hour, you stood with us. Many of your crew gave their lives defending a planet they had known for only a few weeks." "Sir," Jake said, "we did what any decent people would do." "Perhaps," Thane said. "But that makes it no less extraordinary. The Varani Council has been in deliberation. We have reached several decisions that we wish to share with you." Thane gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing the Varani star system and beyond. "First, we are formally requesting a permanent alliance with humanity, not just friendship, but a true partnership. We wish to establish an embassy on Earth, and we welcome a human embassy here on Varath." Jake looked surprised. "Sir, we're honored. But you should know that Earth doesn't speak for all of humanity. We have many nations, many governments." "We understand," Thane said. "We're offering this alliance to all human governments who wish to participate. But we're starting with you and your crew, because you earned it." The council members murmured their agreement. Kira saw that this was unanimous. The battle had changed how Varani viewed the universe. They had learned that peace required strength and that friends were worth fighting for. Second, Thane continued, we wish to share our shield technology with humanity. Your weapons are superior to ours, but our defensive systems are more advanced. Together, we can build ships that are both well-protected and well-armed. Ryan Blake, who was also present, leaned forward with interest. That's a generous offer. I want. It's practical, Thane said. The Kreth found us. Others might as well. We need to be ready. And we need allies who know how to fight. Third, Thane said, we're requesting human assistance in modernizing our military. Commander Blake has already begun teaching our officers new tactics and strategies. We wish to formalize this arrangement. The Varani must never again be so unprepared for war. Jake looked at Ryan, who nodded. We can do that, Jake said. But sir, remember that preparing for war changes a society. Are you sure the Varani want that? We don't want it, Thane said honestly. But we need it. The galaxy is more dangerous than we thought. We must adapt, or we'll be conquered. But we hope that having humans as allies means we can remain true to our values while still being able to defend ourselves. Finally, Thane said, we're offering to help rebuild the Wanderer. Our shipyards, our resources, our engineers. We want to give you a new ship. Better than before, combining the best of both our technologies. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Elder Thane, that's incredibly generous. But building a ship like that will take years and enormous resources. We have both, Thane said, and consider it an investment. When the new Wanderer is complete, it will serve as a symbol of our alliance. A ship crewed by both humans and Varani, showing the galaxy what we can accomplish together. Kira watched Jake process this. She could see the emotions playing across his face. Grief for his lost ship and crew. Hope for what this alliance could mean. Determination to honor those who had died by building something lasting. We accept, Jake said. All of it. The alliance, the technology sharing, the training, the ship. Earth will be grateful for your friendship. The council chamber erupted in applause again. Varani and humans embracing, celebrating a new chapter in both their histories. Later that evening, Kira found Jake on a balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors. She stood beside him, enjoying the peaceful moment. Kira, can I ask you something? Jake said. Of course. When we first arrived, you froze mid-sentence during your broadcast. I saw the recording. You looked terrified. Kira smiled at the memory. I was. An unknown ship appearing without warning. It was like something from a nightmare. And now? Now I can't imagine our world without you. Kira said honestly. You've changed everything, Jake. Not just by fighting for us, but by showing us what's possible. Humans and Varani working together, learning from each other. It's beautiful. We're very different species, Jake observed. Yes, Kira agreed. You're impulsive where we're cautious. You're aggressive where we're peaceful. You've known war where we've known peace, but maybe that's good. Maybe we need each other's strengths. I like that, Jake said. We balance each other out. Over the following months, the alliance took shape. A human delegation arrived from Earth, led by diplomats and scientists. They were amazed by Varani culture and technology. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchange programs were established. Young Varani began studying on Earth, and young humans came to Varath. Lisa established a research center where Varani and human scientists worked side by side. They made breakthrough after breakthrough, combining their different approaches to science. Varani, patience, and methodology, paired with human creativity and risk-taking, produced innovations neither species could have achieved alone. Ryan's military academy became famous across the Varani worlds. Soldiers came from every corner of Varani space to learn human combat tactics and strategy. Ryan taught them well, but he also learned from them. Varani technology and human experience merged into something new and effective. The new Wanderer took shape in orbit. It was larger than the original, with Varani shields and human weapons. The hull bore inscriptions in both languages, honoring the fallen from both species. The crew would be mixed, with humans and Varani serving together. Kira was appointed as the first Varani ambassador to Earth. She would travel to humanity's homeworld to establish the embassy and strengthen ties between their peoples. Jake would captain the new Wanderer once it was complete. On the day before Kira was to leave for Earth, she and Jake stood in the memorial garden. Flowers from both worlds grew there now, mixing colors and scents in a beautiful display. "I'm nervous," Kira admitted. "Going to Earth, meeting other humans. What if they're not like you?" "They're exactly like me," Jake said. "Good and bad. Violent and kind. Scared and brave. But I think you'll like them. And they'll love you." "Will I see you again?" Kira asked. "Of course," Jake said. "Once the Wanderer is finished, we'll be traveling between our worlds regularly. You won't be able to get rid of me." Kira laughed. "Good. I don't want to." She looked up at the sky where stars were beginning to appear. Somewhere up there was Earth, a world she had never heard of a few months ago. Now, it felt like a second home, waiting to be discovered. "Jake," she said, "what do you think would have happened if you had never found us?" Jake thought about it. "Humanity would have kept searching. We would have kept hoping. But we would have been lonely. And when the Kreth came, you would have faced them, alone. So many things had to go right for us to meet." Kira said. "Your ship had to be in exactly the right place. You had to detect our signals. You had to decide to come here." "Destiny," Jake said with a smile. "I don't believe in destiny," Kira said. "I believe in choices. You chose to come. You chose to help. You chose to sacrifice. Those choices saved my world. And your choice to trust us, to work with us, to fight beside us, gave humanity the friends we'd been searching for our entire existence." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Two species, so different, yet so similar, both looking up at the same sky, wondering what the future would bring. News of the alliance spread through the galaxy. Other species began to take notice of the humans and Varani. Some were curious, some were concerned, some were afraid. But Jake wasn't worried. Humanity had spent millennia alone, and that loneliness had taught them the value of friendship. The Varani had spent millennia in peace, and that peace had taught them the value of cooperation. Together, they were stronger than either could be alone. The galaxy was big and full of dangers, but it was also full of possibilities. New species to meet, new friends to make, new discoveries to share. The Varani and humans would face it all together. Kira looked at Jake and saw not just a human, but a friend, a brother, someone who had risked everything for her people without hesitation. That was what humanity was, she realized. Not perfect, not always right, but loyal to the end. When they made friends, they meant it. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" Jake asked. "For appearing above our world that day. For freezing me mid-sentence. For changing everything." Jake smiled. "Thank you for giving us a chance. For not shooting us out of the sky when we showed up unannounced." "That would have been rude," Kira said with a laugh. "Very rude," Jake agreed. They stood together watching the sunset fade to night. Tomorrow, Kira would leave for Earth. The new Wanderer would be completed in a year. The alliance would grow stronger. But this moment, this peaceful evening with a friend, was perfect just as it was. The galaxy had no idea what humans and Varani could do together. But they were about to find out. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, other species watched and wondered. A new power had emerged. Not conquerors or warriors, but friends. And perhaps that was the most dangerous thing of all. Because friendship, true friendship, was something worth fighting for. Something worth dying for. Something that could change the galaxy. The humans in Varani had learned that lesson well, and they would never forget it.